All right, guys, today we got the continuation of yesterday's lesson, trig functions of any angle, part 2. A little much shorter today, and also hopefully quite a bit easier from what you did yesterday, but we're soon to find out. The big word today is reference angle, and we're going to use this word a lot, and we're going to use it for a lot of things, so you need to get very familiar with it. All it is the acute angle formed by the terminal side of an angle in the x-axis. So, for example, there's a great picture down here on the bottom. The angle, if you look at it, starts at the initial side, goes all the way to the terminal side, all the way into the quadrant 3. That angle is 225 degrees. The reference angle for that angle is basically how far is it from the x-axis, the closest x-axis, which is right here, which is 45 degrees, because this right here is really, it's 180 halfway around. So if you go 225 past 180, you went 45. And it has to be acute. Remember, acute means between 0 and 90, so it has to be between 0 and 90. Let me draw another one. Let's say we came all the way over here. We started here, went all the way around to here, and we went 315 degrees. Or if you go 315 degrees, you almost went all the way to 360. So the question is, how far away are you from the 360? You're that far, and that is 45 also. So that reference angle is also 45 degrees. So basically, reference angle is how many degrees you are away from the closest x-axis, and it has to be acute. It has to be positive, has to be between 0 and 90. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to find some answers like this. It says find the sine, cosine, and tangent for 225. Well, if I were to draw 225, it's actually the same angle we just saw. Here's my initial side. I would go, let's see, that's 90, 180, 225 is about right there. So that would be 225. So the question is, how far away from the x-axis are we? Well, we're 45. That's the third time in a row we've been 45. And that's one you should know. You should know what the sine of 45 degrees is. You should know that that's a square root of 2 over 2. You should know the sine of 45 degrees. Now, these aren't the answers. I shouldn't be writing those actually. I'm supposed to be doing 225, but I'll show you how that relates in a second. Cosine 45 degrees is also square root of 2 over 2. That's supposed to be a 2. And the tangent 45 degrees is, sine over cosine, or just 1. Now, I'm not trying to find 45. I'm trying to find 225. So what I need to know is, what quadrant are we in right here? We're in quadrant 3. In quadrant 3, x is negative and y is negative, which means if I'm going to do the 225, which is what I'm really asked to do here, 225, it's going to be the same as the 45, except the sign could change because of the quadrant I'm in. So because I'm in quadrant 3, y is negative, x is negative. Now because x and y are both negative, that means tangent's positive because it's y over x, remember. And that's how we're going to use the reference angle to find some other angles. Let's try one more. This one says negative 780. If I'm going to draw that, it's going to be a monster here. It'd be like negative 90, 180, 270. That's negative 360. If I go around again, that's 720. And if I go 60 more, that's negative 780 that direction. So that's negative 780 right there. Now, how far away am I from the x-axis? Well, I'm 60 away. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to figure out these three angles at 60. So I'm going to find out what sine, these are ones you're supposed to know. What is sine 60? What is cosine 60? And what is tangent 60? All right, now, sine 60, hopefully you have these memorized. Sine 60 is square root of 3 over 2. Cosine 60 degrees is 1/2. Tangent is sine over cosine, or just square root of 3. All right, so I'm not looking for 60, but look what quadrant I am in. I'm in the fourth quadrant, which means that x is positive and y is negative, which means my sine is going to be negative, my cosine is positive, and because they have different signs, my tangent's negative. But we're not trying to find, remember, 60. I'm looking for negative 780. So I'm just going to erase my 60s and replace it with the negative 780, because it's really, the reference angle gives you the right to do that as long as you change it back, and it figure out what quadrants you're in and do this, get the sign from the quadrant. So two steps here. Redraw it with the reference angle, find your value with the reference angle, then go back to your picture, look what quadrants you're in. That tells you what sign to put with your angle. Okay, next slide is just calculator stuff. I'm going to, I can't really video my calculator with this software, and I've tried to embed one before and it just doesn't work out very well. I'm going to talk you through this, and I'll put up on the screen for you tomorrow in class to show you the exact steps. if you want to go slow with me, I'm going to go slow and talk you through it. You need to go to mode first to make sure your calculator is in degree mode. That's the third line down. Make sure it's set on degree. All right, then you're just going to punch in cosine 112. And I'm going to get this value right here. And it says 4 decimal places, negative 0.3746. B says secant 500. There is no secant button. If you look to the left of the sign button, there's a button that says x negative 1. That means reciprocal. Remember, secant's reciprocal of cosine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in cosine 500 degrees, hit enter. Then I'm going to hit the reciprocal button and hit enter. And I get this right here, negative 1.3054. And then C is just tangent of a negative. So I'm going to do tangent, make sure you hit negative, negative 83.4. And I get this right here, negative 8.6427. And then part D, cosecant. Cosecant's reciprocal of sine. So I'm going to do that just like I did B. I'm going to hit sine 351.75, hit enter. Then I'm going to hit the reciprocal button, which is right beside sine, the x negative 1 button. Hit enter. I get negative 6.9690. So you can kind of check that on your own calculator as you watch that slide, or stop it and make sure you get the same values and you should be fine. All right, one more slide. All right, so what they're going to give us here is they're giving us the sine, sine of x is 0.2812. They're asking you to find the angle, and you have to consider what quadrant it says it's in. So remember, when you don't know the angle, instead of hitting your sine button, you're going to hit your inverse sine, which is your sine negative 1. So it's right above sine, so I'm going to go second sine 0.2812, and it gives me this. It gives me 16.3 degrees. But the problem with that degree measure is it's not between 90 and 180. 16.3 degrees is that's how far it is above the x-axis. So there's 90 there. There's 180 there. So because the angle, that's the reference angle is 16.3. It's got to be 16.3 above the 180. So I'm going to subtract 16.3 from 180. And that would give me 160, sorry about that, 163.7 degrees. That's a 163.7. That's terrible. But you've got to consider what quadrant it's in. All right, now the problem with part B is there is no inverse cotangent on the calculator. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change it and make it, okay, if cotangent is negative 0.611, tangent x would be the reciprocal of that, which would be this, 1 over that number. So I'm going to punch that in my calculator. I'm going to go second tangent. Now, to be honest, you can ignore the negative if you want to, because we got to put it in this quadrant anyway. So, it's kind of up to you whether you want to put the negative in there or not. I'm not going to. I'm just going to go 1 over 0.1611 in my calculator, and my calculator tells me it is 80.8 degrees. Now, that's the reference angle. I've got to go in quadrant 4. So if I were to draw that, 360's here, 270's down here. I've got to be 80 degrees away from 360, 80.8. So I'm going to do 360 minus 80.8, and that's going to give me the fourth quadrant measure, which is 279.2 degrees, which is exactly what I need because it's between there and it's this far. I hope that makes some sense to you. And like we always do, we'll definitely go over several of these tomorrow, and you need to make sure you can get it hopefully before you leave the room tomorrow. But it's all about the reference angles. So if you need to go back and look at what reference angles are again, not a bad idea. And I'll see you in class tomorrow.